The weather alert came on Tuesday morning while the alien students were eating breakfast. Red warning symbols flashed on every screen in the university. Emergency announcements played through the speakers in multiple languages. Severe weather warning for the entire region. Hurricane-force winds expected. Heavy rainfall and possible flooding. Temperature drop of 40 degrees over the next 6 hours. The aliens immediately activated their emergency protocols. This was exactly what they had feared most about Earth. Their home worlds had weather, but nothing like what was being described. On Kreeth's planet, a 5-degree temperature change was considered a major climate event. Yelp's gaseous world had gentle breezes that never exceeded what humans would call a light wind. Vordan's scales turned the deep blue color that meant terror among his people. We must evacuate immediately. This storm will destroy everything in its path. Where are the emergency shelters? Asked Milara, her water tank's protection systems already activating. How deep underground do we need to go to survive? But the human students around them seemed remarkably calm. Jake arrived at their dormitory with a relaxed expression that confused the aliens even more. Morning, guys. Looks like we're getting some weather today. Hope you brought warm clothes. Warm clothes? Thex buzzed frantically. The temperature drop will freeze most biological systems solid. We need thermal protection suits and underground shelter. Jake looked at the weather display and shrugged. 40 degrees? That's not too bad. It'll be chilly but nothing dangerous. I've seen it drop 60 degrees in a single day before. The aliens stared at him in shock. Amy Foster, a graduate student they had met the day before, walked past carrying books and wearing what appeared to be normal clothing. Amy, called Yelp through his translator. Are you not evacuating to safety? She paused and looked confused. Evacuating from what? The severe weather emergency, the catastrophic environmental changes. Amy glanced at her phone to check the weather forecast. Oh, this? Yeah, it's going to be pretty windy and rainy. I'm canceling my evening study group because it'll be too windy for my umbrella. But it's not really dangerous or anything. She continued walking as if she had not just described conditions that would shut down civilization on most worlds. The storm began around noon. The aliens huddled in their protective habitat dome, watching through reinforced windows as their worst fears came true. Wind howled around the buildings at speeds that would topple structures on their home planets. Rain fell in torrents that would cause instant flooding in most cities they knew. The temperature dropped so fast that their emergency systems registered it as a catastrophic environmental failure, but through their windows they could see humans moving around outside. Rick Chen, the maintenance supervisor, was actually working in the storm. He moved from building to building, checking systems and making repairs. When a tree branch broke and blocked a walkway, he simply moved it aside and continued his work. Is going to die, whispered Balroon, his leaves trembling. No biological organism can survive in those conditions. But he is not just surviving, Kreeth observed. He appears to be functioning normally. His movement patterns show no signs of distress. A pizza delivery truck pulled up to the dormitory building. The aliens watched in amazement as a young human got out and walked through the storm carrying boxes of food. Kevin Walsh knocked on doors and delivered meals to students as if the life-threatening weather was merely a minor inconvenience. The humans are continuing normal commerce during a disaster, Vordan noted, his scientific training overcoming his fear. Their economic systems do not shut down due to environmental extremes. Jake arrived at their habitat dome carrying a backpack and looking completely normal. His hair was wet from the rain and his clothes showed signs of wind exposure, but he seemed healthy and comfortable. How are you guys doing? Staying warm and dry? How are we doing? Yelp's gaseous form swirled, rapidly with stress. How are you not dead? The atmospheric conditions outside are lethal to most known life forms. Jake looked out at the storm and nodded. Yeah, it's pretty rough out there. Good thing I wore my rain jacket. He showed them a thin piece of fabric that humans apparently considered adequate protection from conditions that required their advanced life support systems. That small covering protects you from environmental disaster? Asked Thex. Well, it keeps most of the rain off. I still got a bit wet, but that's normal. I'll dry off soon enough. The power went out around 3 in the afternoon. The aliens' emergency life support systems immediately switched to backup power, preparing for a long siege against the hostile environment. Their communication systems tried to contact rescue services from their home worlds, but Jake simply lit some candles and started a fire in the fireplace. Within minutes, the room was warm and bright again. He moved around the space with easy confidence, as if losing electrical power during a severe storm was a routine event. "Do you not have backup power generators?" asked Melara. "Emergency power systems? Redundant safety protocols?" "The power will probably come back on in a few hours," Jake replied, poking the fire with a metal rod. "Happens sometimes during storms, no big deal." "No big deal?" Vordon's voice rose to a pitch that indicated extreme stress. "Your entire technological infrastructure has failed during an environmental catastrophe, and you consider this normal?" Jake looked thoughtful. "I guess we just learned to adapt. Humans have lived without electricity for most of our history. We know how to manage when systems fail." The aliens observed as Jake prepared food using the fire instead of electric appliances. He boiled water in a metal pot and cooked simple meals using techniques that required no technology at all. When they asked him where he learned these skills, he seemed surprised by the question. Everyone knows basic stuff like this. You never know when you might need to rough it for a while. As evening approached, the storm reached its peak intensity. The alien sensors registered wind speeds that would be classified as weapons grade on most worlds. The rain was falling so hard that their visibility systems could barely function. Lightning struck nearby trees with electrical discharges that could power their home cities. But humans continued to move around outside. They watched as neighbors spontaneously organized to help each other. When a large tree fell across the main road, blocking vehicle access, a group of humans appeared with handheld cutting tools and began removing it. "They are using primitive tools to move massive obstacles," Kreith observed. Without mechanical assistance or safety equipment, the humans worked together in the storm, coordinating their efforts through simple verbal communication. They cut the tree into smaller pieces and moved them off the road. The whole operation took less than 2 hours. On our worlds, such an obstacle would require specialized heavy equipment and professional crews, Thex noted. These humans are treating it as a minor neighborhood problem. "Look at their cooperation," added Yilp. "They have no central command structure, no assigned roles, no formal organization. Yet they work together more efficiently than our managed systems." One of the humans helping clear the road was an elderly woman named Helen Martinez, Jake's grandmother. She was at least 70 years old by human standards, yet she worked alongside much younger people, carrying heavy branches and operating cutting tools in conditions that would challenge their species' military forces. Their elderly continue to function as productive members of society, even in crisis situations, Vordon marveled. On most worlds, the old and weak would be the first to succumb to such conditions. As the night continued, the aliens noticed something else remarkable. Human children were playing in the dormitory hallways, apparently enjoying the excitement of the storm. Parents kept them safely indoors, but did not seem overly concerned about their welfare. The children treated the power outage like an adventure, playing games by candlelight and telling stories. Their young are not traumatized by environmental disaster, Balroon observed. They view extreme conditions as entertainment. 8-year-old Emma Brown lived in the dormitory with her graduate student parents. She approached the aliens' habitat dome with curious eyes and no sign of fear. "Are you guys okay in there? My mom says you're from other planets. Is this storm scary for you?" The aliens looked at each other. Here was a juvenile human, a being who should be the most vulnerable member of her species, showing concern for their welfare during what they considered a catastrophic disaster. "We are frightened by your world's dangerous conditions," Thex admitted. Emma nodded seriously. "My dad says every planet is different. Maybe your worlds are safer than ours. But don't worry. Colorado storms look scary, but they're not usually really dangerous. We know how to handle them." She offered them some of her candy, a gesture of kindness that moved the aliens more than they expected. This small human was trying to comfort visitors from across the galaxy during what she casually called not really dangerous conditions. By morning, the storm had passed. The aliens emerged from their habitat dome to find the campus mostly back to normal. Humans were cleaning up debris, restoring power, and going about their daily routines. What they had experienced as a civilization-threatening disaster, humans treated as routine maintenance. The alien students realized they had YY. The meeting room on Velthara Prime was filled with nervous energy. 6 alien students sat in specially designed chairs that matched their different body types. Each one had been chosen from thousands of applicants across the galaxy. They were the best and brightest from their worlds, selected for the first cultural exchange program with Earth. Kreeth shifted in his chair, his crystalline body catching the soft light of the room. As a silicoid, he was used to the quiet caves of his home planet where nothing ever changed. The idea of visiting a world where things moved and changed constantly made him worried. His internal structure vibrated slightly with anxiety. Next to him, Yilp floated in a special containment suit. The gaseous nebulite had never been in such a small space before. On his homeworld, beings like him drifted freely through vast cloud formations. The thought of being on a solid planet with fixed boundaries terrified him. Vordan, the reptilian saurid, was trying to look calm, but his scales kept shifting color. This was a sign of stress among his people. His world was warm and peaceful, with gentle rains and soft sunlight. He had read the reports about Earth's violent weather and felt his stomach twist with fear. Milara bubbled softly in her water tank. The aquatic Oceanian needed to stay in specially treated water at all times. Her world was covered in calm, warm seas, where nothing dangerous ever happened. The idea of a planet with land and air creatures scared her more than she wanted to admit. Thex clicked his mandibles nervously. The insectoid chitinous came from a world where his hive mind kept everyone safe and calm. Being alone, away from the comforting thoughts of his colony, was already difficult. Going to a world full of individual thinkers who might be unpredictable made his exoskeleton itch with worry. Balrun swayed gently in his pot. The plant-like Verdanian was rooted in specially prepared soil that had to be perfect for his survival. His world had ideal growing conditions with no storms, no temperature changes, and no threats. Everything he had heard about Earth sounded like a nightmare for a being who needed perfect conditions to live. Professor Zixtal entered the room, his forearms carrying data tablets. The Altarian scholar was excited about this project, but he could see the fear in his students' faces. Many of his colleagues had argued against this exchange program. They said humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too violent. But Zixtal believed that understanding humans was important for the galaxy's future. Students, he began, his voice translator making his words clear to all 6 different species. Today you begin a journey that will change how our galaxy understands humanity. Yes, Earth is classified as a death world. Yes, humans evolved in conditions that would kill most of us in minutes. But this is exactly why we must learn from them. Vordan's scales turned a deep purple, the color of fear among his people. Professor, the atmospheric readings show that Earth's air contains oxygen levels that are toxic to most species. The gravity is 3 times what we consider safe. The temperature variations could freeze or cook us within hours. And yet, Professor, Zixtal replied, humans thrive there. They have built a civilization that spans their entire planet. They explore their most dangerous regions for fun. We need to understand how they do this. Gilp's gaseous form swirled nervously in his suit. The reports say they actually seek out danger. They climb mountains that could kill them. They swim in waters full of predators. They expose themselves to radiation from their star just to change the color of their skin. This sounds like mass insanity. The professor's expression grew serious. Or perhaps it sounds like the most advanced survival strategy in the galaxy. Think about it. While we have built our civilizations in the safest possible environments, humans learned to adapt to constant threat. When crisis comes to our worlds, we panic. When crisis comes to Earth, humans call it Tuesday. Thex's compound eyes focused on the data tablet showing images of Earth. These creatures look so fragile. Their skin is soft. They have no natural armor, no claws, no poison. How do they survive on such a dangerous world? That, said Professor Zixtal, is what you are going to find out. Your human contact is Jake Martinez. He is a former military soldier who now teaches at their university. He has agreed to be your guide and protector during your stay. Balroon's leaves rustled with concern. A soldier? Are we going to a war zone? No, the professor laughed. But that is exactly my point. On Earth, soldiers become teachers, warriors become scholars. They see no contradiction between being prepared for violence and pursuing knowledge. This is the human way of thinking. We must understand. The students received their final briefings and equipment checks. Each had life support systems that would keep them alive in Earth's hostile environment. Kreeth had a special suit that would protect his crystalline structure from Earth's chaotic electromagnetic fields. Yelp's containment system could maintain his gaseous form even in Earth's thick atmosphere. Vordon had temperature regulators to protect him from Earth's extreme weather. Milara's water tank was portable and could filter Earth's contaminated water supply. Thex had communication boosters to help him cope without his hive mind. Balron's soil container had nutrient systems to keep him healthy in Earth's polluted environment. As their transport ship approached Earth, the students pressed against the viewing ports to see their destination. What they saw terrified them. Massive storm systems swirled across the planet's surface. Lightning flashed constantly through the atmosphere. The continents were scarred with mountains that reached impossible heights. The oceans churned with waves that could destroy their home cities. Look at those atmospheric disturbances, whispered Vordon. How does anything survive down there? The radiation levels from their star are off the charts, added Yelp. One of those solar flares could sterilize our homeworlds. But what shocked them most was the evidence of civilization. Lights covered the dark side of the planet like a glowing web. Structures reached high into the atmosphere. Ships moved across the violent oceans. Not only were humans surviving on this death world, they were thriving. The transport landed at a facility in what humans called Colorado. The students were sealed in their protective suits and containers before the doors opened. They expected to be rushed to underground shelters to protect them from the hostile environment. Instead, they saw a single human standing casually on the landing platform. He wore simple clothes and had no visible protection from the deadly atmosphere around him. The sun beat down with radiation that should have killed him instantly. The gravity that made the students feel like they were being crushed seemed to have no effect on him at all. Jake Martinez smiled and waved as they approached. Welcome to Earth. I hope you had a good trip. Beautiful day, isn't it? The students looked around in confusion. The sky was filled with fast-moving clouds that could indicate incoming storms. The wind was strong enough to knock down trees on their home worlds. The temperature was varying by degrees that would be considered extreme weather events anywhere else in the galaxy. This is beautiful weather? Asked Kreeth through his translator. Oh yeah, Jake replied, breathing deeply of the supposedly toxic air. Perfect Colorado day. Not too hot, not too cold. Just a nice breeze. Wait until you see what we call bad weather. As they walked toward the transport vehicles, Vordon noticed that Jake moved with easy confidence across ground that was uneven and potentially dangerous. His feet found purchase on surfaces that could be slippery or unstable. He seemed to automatically adjust his balance as the wind gusted around them. Are you wearing some kind of enhancement suit? Asked Yelp. Jake looked confused. Enhancement suit? No, just my regular clothes. Why? The students exchanged worried glances through their various communication systems. If this was a normal human without any special equipment, what did that say about their species' capabilities? As they loaded into the ground vehicles, Jake continued talking in a cheerful, relaxed manner about the local area. He pointed out mountains that rose to heights where the air would be too thin for most species to survive. He mentioned hiking trails that crossed terrain the students would consider impassable. He talked about weather patterns that included seasonal temperature changes of over 50 degrees, and through it all he seemed to consider these things normal, even pleasant aspects of his world. The students began to realize that their academic exchange program was going to teach them far more about survival than they had ever imagined. The alien students woke up to what Jake called a normal morning routine. Their first day of classes was about to begin, but none of them felt ready for what they would experience. At 6 in the morning, Lisa Park arrived at their dormitory with a smile that the aliens found disturbing. She was wearing thin fabric clothes and looked completely relaxed despite the fact that the morning air temperature was cold enough to slow down Vordan's metabolism. "Good morning, everyone. Ready for your morning jog?" Lisa announced cheerfully. The students looked at each other in confusion through their various communication systems. Yilp was the first to speak. "Jog? What is jogging?" "Oh, it's great exercise. We'll run around the campus for about 30 minutes. Nothing too hard for your first day. Just a nice easy 3 miles. Kreeth's crystalline structure nearly cracked from shock. Run? For 30 minutes? Why would anyone do that voluntarily? Lisa laughed, not understanding the horror in his voice. For health. Running makes your heart stronger and your body more fit. It's fun once you get used to it. The aliens activated their emergency movement protocols as Lisa led them outside. They watched in amazement as she began moving at what they considered dangerous speeds across uneven ground. Her feet hit the pavement with force that should have damaged her soft human bones. Her breathing became rapid and her heart rate increased to levels that would indicate severe distress in most species. But Lisa seemed to enjoy it. She talked casually as she ran, pointing out interesting buildings and telling them about the campus history. The aliens struggled to keep up even with their mechanical assistance systems working at maximum power. After 10 minutes, Vordan's scales were turning colors that indicated medical emergency. "Stop! She is killing herself. Her body temperature is rising too high." Lisa slowed down and looked back with concern. "Are you guys okay? We can take a break if you need to." "You need medical attention immediately," Thex buzzed through his translator. "Your body is producing toxins through your skin. Your breathing is labored. Your face is changing color." Lisa wiped the sweat from her forehead and grinned. "Oh, that's just normal exercise stuff. I'm barely getting warmed up. You should see me after a real workout." The students spent the rest of the morning in their medical bay, running diagnostics on Lisa's vital signs. According to their equipment, she had just put her body through what they would consider torture. But when they contacted Jake to report the medical emergency, he just laughed. "Lisa's fine. That's how humans exercise. We actually pay money to go to special buildings where we can stress our bodies like that for fun." Their next class was basic biology with Dr. Ben Rodriguez. The students were eager to learn about Earth's life forms, hoping to understand how anything survived on this dangerous planet. Dr. Rodriguez was preparing slides for the microscope when he accidentally knocked over a glass container. It shattered on the floor and a sharp piece cut across his hand. Blood began flowing from the wound. The aliens immediately activated their emergency medical protocols. Alarms went off in their suits. Emergency signals were sent to their home worlds. They were certain they were about to witness a human death, but Dr. Rodriguez just looked at his hand with mild annoyance. "Oops, clumsy me." He grabbed a tissue from his desk and pressed it against the cut. The bleeding slowed down quickly. "Emergency! Emergency!" Yilp was broadcasting on all frequencies. "The human has suffered catastrophic tissue damage. He is leaking vital fluids." Dr. Rodriguez looked confused by their panic. "It's just a small cut, guys, no big deal." He opened a drawer and pulled out a small adhesive bandage. He stuck it over the wound and continued preparing his slides. "You are not seeking medical attention?" asked Melara in disbelief. "For this little scratch? Nah. It'll heal up in a few days. Humans heal pretty fast." Balrun's leaves were shaking with shock. "On my world, any damage to our outer structure requires immediate medical intervention and weeks of recovery time." "Really? That's interesting," Dr. Rodriguez said, making notes. "Human skin repairs itself automatically. We barely think about minor injuries like this." The lesson continued, but the aliens were too disturbed to concentrate. They watched Dr. Rodriguez work normally with his catastrophic injury, using his damaged hand as if nothing had happened. Lunchtime brought new horrors. Carol Thompson, the cafeteria manager, served them what she called mild food suitable for sensitive stomachs. The first bite activated every toxin detection system the aliens possessed. Vordan's emergency filtration systems kicked in immediately. "Poison. This food contains chemical compounds that are toxic to biological systems. Carol looked worried. Oh no, is it too spicy? I made sure to use the blandest ingredients we have. Spicy? Thex's translator struggled with the concept. You intentionally add toxic substances to your food? Well, spices aren't toxic to humans, they just add flavor. Some people like mild food, others like it really hot and spicy. The aliens watched in horror as human students around them ate food that would be classified as chemical weapons on most civilized worlds. Some humans were actually eating food that made them sweat and turn red, and they seemed to enjoy it. Why do humans consume poison for pleasure? Asked Creeth. Carol thought about this. I guess we just evolved to handle a lot of different chemicals. Plus, spicy food tastes good once you get used to it. In the afternoon, their cultural studies professor Tony Kim took them to observe human recreational activities. They arrived at something called a rock climbing gym. The aliens watched in stunned silence as humans voluntarily climbed vertical walls that extended high above the ground. If they fell, they would suffer serious injury or death. But the humans seemed to consider this entertainment. This is a recreational activity, whispered Vordan. Yep, Tony replied. Lots of people love rock climbing. Great exercise, and it's fun to challenge yourself. A young human woman named Amy was climbing a particularly difficult route. She was hanging from small holds by just her fingertips, her entire body weight supported by her grip strength. The aliens calculated that she was one slip away from a potentially fatal fall. Should we not warn her about the danger? Asked Yilp. She knows the risks, Tony explained. That's part of what makes it exciting. Humans like activities that test their limits. Amy reached the top of the wall and rang a bell to celebrate. She rappelled down with a huge smile on her face. Great. Rout, I want to try the harder one next. Harder one? Thex's voice rose to frequencies that hurt human ears. Tony pointed to another wall that was even steeper and higher. Oh yeah, we have routes for all skill levels. Some people climb mountains that are thousands of feet high. Mountains? Balron's leaves turned pale green with shock. Sure, mountain climbing is really popular. Some people climb in snow, ice, storms. The more challenging the conditions, the more accomplished climbers want to try it. The aliens huddled together, sharing their observations through encrypted communications. They were beginning to understand that humans did not just survive their dangerous world. They actively sought out additional dangers for entertainment. That evening, back in their protective habitat dome, the 6 students held an emergency conference. These beings are insane, Vordan concluded. They damage their bodies voluntarily. They consume toxic substances for pleasure. They risk death for entertainment. But they are not dying, Creeth pointed out. Their bodies seem designed to handle these stresses. They recover from injuries that would kill us. They process toxins that would poison us. Perhaps, Melara suggested, this is how they became so adaptable. Their world forces them to be strong, so they developed bodies and minds that can handle extreme stress. Yelp swirled thoughtfully in his containment suit. I have been monitoring their emotional responses. When they face what we consider mortal danger, their stress levels actually decrease. They become calmer and more focused. Thex clicked his mandibles nervously. On my world, the hive mind protects us from all dangers. But humans face danger alone, as individuals. Yet they seem more capable than our entire collective when crisis occurs. Balron's leaves rustled softly. I am beginning to think that what we call normal and safe, they would call boring and weak. They have made strength out of struggle. The students spent the rest of the evening reviewing the day's data. Every observation pointed to the same conclusion. Humans were not primitive savages who happened to survive on a death world. They were highly evolved survival specialists who had turned their hostile environment into a training ground. As they prepared for sleep, each alien student wondered what tomorrow would bring. If this was just normal human daily life, what would happen when they faced real challenges? Outside their protective dome, they could hear humans moving around in the darkness, completely unprotected from their world's dangers, as comfortable in the night as they were in the day. The sound was both terrifying and amazing. The field trip to Red Rock Canyon was supposed to be a peaceful educational experience. Jake had planned it as a way for the alien students to observe Earth's geological formations in a controlled environment. The weather was perfect by human standards, sunny, warm, with a gentle breeze that the aliens had learned to recognize as nice. Dr. Sandra Bell, a visiting geologist from the State University, had joined their group to explain how Earth's mountains and canyons formed over millions of years. The aliens found her knowledge impressive, but they were more amazed by how casually she climbed over rocks and walked on uneven surfaces that would challenge their most advanced mobility systems. Dan Lopez, the park ranger, led them along what humans called an easy trail. For the aliens, even this simple path was a constant obstacle course. Their life support systems worked overtime to keep them stable on the rough ground, while Dan moved ahead with the relaxed confidence they had come to associate with all humans. These formations are about 200 million years old, Sandra explained, pointing to redstone walls that rose high above them. The layers tell us about different climate periods in Earth's history. The aliens were fascinated by the geology, but they were more interested in observing how humans moved through this dangerous terrain. Pete Johnson and Lisa Wright, two hikers, they had met on the trail, were carrying heavy packs and walking for hours without showing signs of exhaustion. A family called the Browns was hiking with 3 children, including 8-year-old Emma, who had befriended the aliens during the storm. Everything changed in an instant when Milara's water circulation system failed. The aquatic Oceanian had been moving slowly through the canyon in her portable life support tank. Her species needed specific water conditions to survive: the right temperature, chemical balance, and pressure. Without these conditions, she would die within minutes. A small rock slide, barely noticeable to the humans, had damaged one of her tank's delicate sensors. The system tried to compensate, but within seconds, warning alarms began screaming from her equipment. Her water was becoming toxic to her biology faster than her backup systems could handle. "Emergency! Emergency!" her translator broadcast as her tank's water turned cloudy. "Life support failure. Milara is dying." The reaction from the humans was immediate and overwhelming. Jake dropped his educational materials and was at her side in seconds, his calm demeanor replaced by focused intensity. Dan spoke rapidly into his radio, calling for emergency medical support while simultaneously beginning emergency procedures. "Sandra, I need your geology kit, the water testing equipment. Pete, Lisa, can you spare any drinking water? Emma, I need you to stay with your parents." But the humans did not just follow orders. They began solving problems before being asked. Lisa Wright was already pulling bottles of water from her backpack. Pete Johnson was clearing a flat area where they could work. The Brown family positioned their vehicle to block wind and provide shelter. What amazed the alien students was that none of these humans had been trained for this specific emergency, yet they responded as if they had practiced this exact scenario many times. Sandra Bell opened her geology field kit and began pulling out equipment the aliens had not known existed. "I have pH testing strips, mineral analysis tools, and portable filtration equipment. I studied xenobiology as a hobby. I know basic Oceanian physiology." She began working on Milara's tank with tools designed for analyzing rock samples. The aliens watched in shock as she jury-rigged a water purification system using camping equipment, scientific instruments, and what appeared to be random items from her backpack. "How do you know how to do this?" Vordon asked, his scales shifting colors rapidly. "I read about different alien species in my spare time," Sandra replied while working. "Always figured it might be useful someday. You never know what kind of emergency you might face." Dan Lopez was coordinating multiple rescue efforts simultaneously. He guided emergency medical teams to their location while providing first aid instructions adapted for Oceanian biology. The aliens realized he was not just following standard procedures, he was improvising solutions in real time. "How far is the nearest hospital with xenobiological facilities?" asked Thex. "About 40 minutes by air ambulance," Dan replied, "but we need to stabilize her condition first." Jake was already calculating alternative solutions. "There's a marine biology lab at the university. They have aquatic life support systems that we could modify, but we need to get her there quickly. The most shocking moment came when the Brown family volunteered their vehicle for emergency transport. Mr. Brown quickly moved his children's car seats and camping gear to make room for Melara's equipment. Mrs. Brown began gathering towels and blankets to help maintain the makeshift life support system Sandra was building. "You are risking your family's safety for a being you barely know," Balrun observed. "She's in trouble," replied Mrs. Brown simply. "We help people who are in trouble, that's what you do." 8-year-old Emma approached with her most treasured possession, a small snow globe filled with water that contained artificial marine life. "Would this help? It has clean water in it." The alien students felt something break inside their understanding of the universe. This small human child was offering her favorite toy to save the life of a completely alien being she had met only days before. Sandra accepted the snow globe gratefully. "The water in here is distilled and sterile. This could be exactly what we need to buy more time." They loaded Melara into the Brown family vehicle, which became a mobile emergency medical unit. Sandra rode in the back, monitoring Melara's condition, while maintaining the improvised life support system. Jake sat in the front, coordinating with rescue services and navigation systems. The drive to the university normally took an hour on safe roads. Mr. Brown made it in 35 minutes over terrain that the aliens would have considered impassable. He drove with skill that suggested he had done emergency driving before, navigating rocky paths and steep inclines while keeping the vehicle stable enough for Sandra to work. "Have you received special emergency driving training?" asked Yelp. "Not really," Mr. Brown replied, focused on the road. "But you learn to handle your vehicle in different conditions when you live out here. Mountains, snow, storms. You need to be ready for anything." When they reached the university, professional emergency responders were waiting, but instead of replacing the humans' improvised efforts, the paramedics worked with them. They praised Sandra's field modifications and incorporated Jake's coordination efforts into their professional protocols. "Excellent work on the filtration system," the lead paramedic told Sandra. "You probably saved her life." "The coordination and transport were perfect," another medic added. "Couldn't have done it better ourselves." The alien students realized they were witnessing something beyond simple emergency response. These humans had turned a potentially fatal accident into a coordinated rescue operation, using improvised resources and spontaneous cooperation. Dr. Martinez, the university's xenobiology specialist, met them at the medical center. "We have her stabilized. The field modifications to her life support were ingenious. Who designed this system?" "Sandra did it with geology equipment and camping supplies," Jake explained. Dr. Martinez studied the improvised apparatus with professional respect. "This is graduate-level bioengineering accomplished with basic field tools. Impressive adaptation under pressure." As Melara recovered in the medical facility, the alien students gathered to process what they had witnessed. Their colleague had faced a life-threatening emergency in an environment that was already hostile to her biology. But instead of chaos and panic, they had seen humans transform into an efficient rescue team. They had no advanced preparation for this specific scenario, Kreith observed. Yet they responded with coordinated expertise. "Every human contributed useful skills," added Yelp. The geologist knew xenobiology. The park ranger knew emergency coordination. The hikers provided resources. The family provided transport. Vordan's scales showed deep contemplation colors. They prepare for emergencies they have never encountered. They study subjects they do not need for their daily work. They carry equipment for situations that may never happen. Thex clicked thoughtfully. "On our worlds, we specialize. Each individual has one role, one function, but these humans seem to prepare for multiple roles simultaneously." Balrun's leaves rustled with new understanding. "They live in a world where any day might bring unexpected crisis, so they make themselves ready for anything." The most profound observation came from watching Emma Brown visit Melara in the medical center. The small human child had insisted on bringing flowers and drawings to help her alien friend feel better. She spoke to Melara as if species differences meant nothing. "Your people saved my life," Milara said through her translator. "We're friends now," Emma replied simply. Friends help each other. The alien students began to understand that human society had evolved around the expectation that individuals would face the unexpected and need to help each other survive. Every human was prepared to be a first responder, a problem solver, a source of aid in crisis. They were not just observing a species that survived on a death world. They were learning from a civilization that had turned survival into an art form. The final week of the exchange program arrived faster than any of the alien students expected. They gathered in the university's main conference room for their academic assessment presentation. Professor Zixtal had arrived from Velthara Prime to hear their conclusions about humanity. Representatives from the Galactic Academic Consortium attended via holographic projection, eager to learn what these students had discovered about Earth's dominant species. The 6 aliens looked very different from the frightened beings who had arrived weeks earlier. Their protective equipment was still necessary for survival, but they moved with more confidence. They had learned to navigate human spaces and understand human behavior in ways that surprised even themselves. Kreeth spoke first, his crystalline structure catching the light as he presented his findings. "Honored professors, we came to Earth expecting to study a primitive species that had somehow survived on a hostile world through luck and stubbornness. What we discovered was the most advanced survival psychology in the known galaxy." He activated his presentation display, showing videos of humans engaged in various activities the aliens had observed. Humans do not simply endure their dangerous environment. They have evolved to use danger as a tool for growth and improvement. What we initially perceived as reckless behavior is actually sophisticated training for unpredictable challenges. The holographic representatives shifted with interest. Kreeth continued, "Their recreational activities serve as constant preparation for survival scenarios. Rock climbing teaches them to solve problems under physical stress. Long-distance running builds cardiovascular systems that can handle emergencies. Even their games and sports simulate conflict and crisis management." Yilp spoke next, his gaseous form swirling with excitement in his containment suit. "Most remarkable is their stress response system. Where other species panic or shut down, when faced with the unexpected, humans become more focused and capable. Their bodies and minds are designed to perform optimally under pressure." He showed recordings of humans during the storm and during Milara's emergency. "Observe their physiological responses. Heart rate increases but remains controlled. Breathing deepens but stays steady. Mental focus sharpens rather than scattering. They have evolved to thrive in crisis situations that would overwhelm most galactic species." Vordon presented his analysis of human social systems. His scales displayed calm blue colors as he spoke with new confidence. "Human civilization is built around the assumption that catastrophic events are normal occurrences. Their infrastructure, emergency services, and cultural practices all operate on the principle that individuals will regularly face life-threatening situations." The display showed images of human cities, transportation systems, and emergency response networks. Notice how their urban planning includes multiple backup systems, redundant communication networks, and distributed resource storage. They expect their systems to fail under stress, so they build alternatives into everything. Milara, fully recovered from her emergency, spoke from her portable tank. "What moved me most was their approach to helping others. When my life support failed, every human present immediately contributed to my rescue. They used skills and knowledge they had acquired for completely different purposes." Her voice carried emotion that translated across species barriers. The geologist Sandra Bell had studied xenobiology as a hobby, thinking it might someday be useful. The park ranger Dan Lopez had memorized emergency procedures for situations he had never encountered. Even young Emma Brown was prepared to sacrifice her treasured possession to help a stranger. She paused, bubbling softly with what her species considered deep thought. They prepare for emergencies involving people they have never met, facing problems they have never experienced. This level of readiness for the unknown is unprecedented in galactic civilization. Thex clicked his mandibles in the pattern that indicated profound realization among his people. On my homeworld, our hive mind protects individuals from making dangerous decisions. We value safety and predictability above all else. But humans face danger as individuals, making split-second decisions without collective guidance. His compound eyes focused on the assessment panel. Yet they demonstrate superior crisis management capabilities compared to our most advanced collective intelligence systems. Each human carries the decision-making ability of our entire hive councils. Balrun swayed gently in his specialized soil container as he spoke. Perhaps most importantly, we learned that humans view their harsh environment as an advantage rather than a disadvantage. They told us repeatedly that Earth's challenges make them stronger, more adaptable, more capable of handling whatever the universe might present. His leaves rustled with what other Verdanians would recognize as wonder. They actually take pride in surviving difficulties that would be considered unbearable hardships on our worlds. They see struggle as the source of their strength rather than something to be avoided. The presentation concluded with their collective recommendation. The 6 students had prepared this final section together, and Kreeth delivered it on behalf of the group. Honored council members, we recommend that humanity's classification be changed from dangerous primitive species to essential crisis response partners. Earth has not produced savages who happen to survive on a death world. It has produced the most capable survival specialists in the galaxy. Professor Zixtal leaned forward with interest. Explain this recommendation in more detail. Forden answered, every human is essentially a trained emergency responder. Their education system teaches problem-solving under pressure. Their recreational activities build physical and mental resilience. Their social customs emphasize helping others during crisis. Their entire culture is designed to produce individuals who can adapt to unexpected challenges. Furthermore, added Yilp, they possess psychological traits that are rare in galactic civilization. They remain optimistic in the face of danger. They volunteer for risky missions. They maintain morale during extended hardships. These characteristics would be invaluable for exploration, colonization, and emergency response throughout the galaxy. The council representatives exchanged glances through their holographic projections. Are you suggesting that humans could contribute to galactic society beyond simple cultural exchange? Thex buzzed with excitement. We are suggesting that humans represent an evolutionary solution to problems the galaxy has not yet learned to solve. Their Deathworld origin is not a limitation. It is their greatest qualification for helping other species survive in dangerous environments. Milara added, during my emergency, I experienced human crisis response firsthand. They improvised solutions faster than our most advanced computer systems could calculate options. They coordinated rescue efforts more efficiently than our formal command structures. They showed compassion for a being they barely knew while risking their own safety. Balrun's leaves turned the golden color his species used to indicate deep respect. Most galactic species have evolved in safe, predictable environments. When we encounter genuine danger or unexpected problems, we lack the adaptive responses that humans consider normal behavior. The assessment session continued for several more hours, with the alien students answering detailed questions about human capabilities, psychology, and social systems. They shared recordings, data, and personal observations that painted a picture of humanity very different from previous galactic assumptions. As the session concluded, Professor Zixtal smiled with satisfaction. Students, you have completed the most important cultural analysis in galactic academic history. Your findings will reshape how we understand humanity and their potential role in our civilization. The final day arrived too quickly. Jake came to escort them to the transport ship that would take them back to Velthara Prime. The alien students felt sadness at leaving Earth, an emotion none of them had expected to experience on what they had initially considered a prison planet. Will you tell your people about us? Jake asked as they walked to the landing pad. We will tell them that Earth is not a death world that produced dangerous primitives, Kreeth replied. We will tell them that Earth is a training ground that created the most capable beings in the galaxy. As their ship lifted off, The alien students pressed against the viewing ports for one last look at Earth. Below them, they could see humans, continuing their daily lives in an environment that could kill most galactic citizens within hours. But now they understood that these were not helpless creatures struggling to survive. They were watching the ultimate survivors, the beings who had turned their world's dangers into advantages, who had made strength from struggle, and who had learned to thrive wherever the universe chose to test them. The galaxy was about to discover that humans were not a species to be feared or pitied. They were a species to be learned from, partnered with, and perhaps most importantly, called upon when the impossible needed to become possible.